All right, let's get started.
Paula Reed, I know you've been listening to this decision. What have we heard?
We have. Well, of course, this is not a thumbs up, thumbs down. This is a complicated decision. We just got it here. It's an opinion from Chief Justice John Roberts finding that former presidents are entitled to absolute immunity for official acts, but not for unofficial acts. So what does that translate to? Well, this is something we saw that was sort of signaled in...
Let me tell you, okay, anything you can massage into the official act category, you can get away with. Like, for example, if, let's say, the current sitting president orders SEAL Team 6, as is in his purview as commander-in-chief, to assassinate his political rivals, that is technically under the purview of the presidency. If, for example, the president, sitting president, decides to do a military coup, that's now legal. Let's go, boys. Let's have some fun with it. Why the fuck not? You feel me? Okay. Let's go. Let's go, Brandon. What is happening? Dark Brandon time.
Or argument, because what this means is that the former president cannot be prosecuted for anything that was officially part of his job when he was in office. And that's significant because even his own lawyers conceded during oral argument that not everything that is alleged in this indictment was an official act. So now the question is, what does the special counsel do here? He could potentially try to cull down this indictment to a more narrow one, just focusing on unofficial acts, and then try to proceed with this case. Still an open question, though, about whether even a slimmed down case could go before the election. 3 reasons for that. One, the judge overseeing this, Judge Tanya Chutkan, she has signaled that the lawyers should get some lead time on this. I mean, we're a couple months out from the election. The idea of putting the Republican candidate for the presidency on trial, where he would have to be in court months, weeks before the election, that's something that would likely have us right here again before the Supreme Court. Also, the Attorney General, unlikely to allow something to go ahead that quickly, but we'll see. But right now, this decision, the Supreme Court finding that former presidents are entitled to absolute immunity for official acts, but not for unofficial acts. This opinion, very, very long. It's going to take us a while to get through everything.
Right now, I'm looking at an excerpt from the Roberts written decision. He says, quote, Trump asserts a far broader immunity than the limited one we have recognized.
Send habit to Gitmo. That's what I'm talking about, dude. Get freaky with it. Get fucking freaky with it. Throw all the governors that you don't like in Guantanamo Bay. Okay? Fuck it. Literally go into the Department of Education and wipe out all the records. Who's going to stop you? Who's going to stop you? You're the president. It's an official presidential purview. Okay? Do it. Do the damn thing. Fucking YOLO mode. Okay? SCOTUS said Iran-Contra was unprosecutable. Nixon. Literally, Nixon. Everything Nixon did, vindicated. Okay? Wasn't wrong.
Meaning the court. The text of the clause provides little support for the absolute immunity claim that Trump asserts. So they're rejecting that. But in essence, all of the details as to the allegations made, the accusations made in the Jack Smith indictment of Donald Trump, not all of them, but many of them, the court is saying, we are sending this back to the district court. They have to decide whether Trump's communications with the American people, calling them to rally to the Capitol on January 6th, and everything that happened after that, the disruption of the counting of the electoral votes, the sham electors scheme, all of that, whether or not that's an official act.
I mean, I'm just saying, why wouldn't it be an official act? He did it with the Department of Justice. Half the shit he did, he was the president talking to a governor. Literally everything Donald Trump has done in office, things that he was impeached for, like a pay-for-play scheme, holding up congressionally approved funding to Ukraine, with threats that if you don't find me blackmail on my political rival, technically that is not illegal. You're the president. You're talking to a foreign official. That's like well within your purview. Okay? This is entirely presidential. Which is so crazy because, like, as the president, you can still do illegal shit as the president. Okay? Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Like, that's Nixon. Nixon did that, right? Nixon did that. Donald Trump did that too, which is crazy. And I said this before when like this was first being brought in front of the Supreme Court. I thought, they'll probably do like some fucking silly ass carve out, right? They'll probably try to do like a silly ass carve out at most. They won't give him like immunity as like immunity for things that the president can do as the president. They won't give him like, they won't shelter him from that because that's like broad reaching. That's a broad reaching decision. And it's completely antithetical to like the founders, right? And what this country's foundation looks like. I mean, this is like the idea that no one is above the law, the idea that we do not want God, king, emperors. Like that was perhaps one of the only American principles that I agree with and that is supposed to be held up in theory, right? This is a direct attack against that. This is a direct attack against that principle. This is a direct attack against the founders, right? I'm not saying that like people are obviously not, I'm not saying that people held on to that value. Like I'm sure, yes, of course, in the United States of America, many people are above the law, but never officially, right? Like never to this degree. So it is really damning. This is a really damning decision. Especially a president being like, yeah, no, actually, we've decided that presidents can do whatever the fuck they want. We've decided presidents are above the law. Like it's pretty goddamn un-American, you know?
Act has to be determined by the U.S. District Court. And Ellie Honig, you were saying what's most significant about that is the U.S. Supreme Court could have said, we're remanding this to the district court, to the lower court, and whatever they say goes, and we will uphold that. They didn't say that.
Exactly. To the contrary. This case will not go before the election. It will not be tried before the election, and here's why. Supreme Court has just said there is such thing as criminal immunity. The test, as we anticipated, is essentially official acts versus unofficial acts. We're sending it back to the district court, and this is an important detail, the court says several times, whatever the district court finds can be appealed before trial. Jack Smith had made an argument of, well, maybe the district judge, the trial judge can work it out and send it to the jury, and then the jury can separate official from unofficial acts. Several times in this opinion, the Supreme Court, the majority, says explicitly whatever the judge decides about what's official or unofficial, what's immune or not immune, that can be appealed back up. 0% chance that happens before November.
So why?
I like that we have the distinction now, which is like official crimes versus unofficial crimes. If he steals a fucking candy bar, like that's prosecutable, right? But as president, if he sends the SEAL Team 6 to go and, I don't know, steal all the candy bars from the factory directly, then it's like, well, technically he's authorized to do that. So it's like within the official scope of the presidency, or at least something that you can defend on that idea. That's wild. I saw a reporter tweet earlier basically saying that after this, if Trump wins, he's going to start every sentence as an official act. He will say it 100 times a day to do anything he wants. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty fucked up. Does this mean that a president could never be prosecuted for war crimes? I mean, no president was ever going to be prosecuted for war crimes anyway, but this is definitely official, yes. At least not by the American courts.
Do that. I mean, if they are saying, hey, we're the U.S. Supreme Court and we're going to have the final say on this no matter what, why not just make it clear? Everything's delineated in the indictment. Why not just make it clear? And if Judge Chutkan decides...
No, the official act isn't legal. He can't be prosecuted is all. Yes. Wait, what did I say? No, yeah, he can do illegal shit.
X, Y, or Z, we will agree with that. Why not just be explicit?
Because the Supreme Court, they're in a court of appeals, they want to see a record, right? And I think, with Judge Chutkan just kind of...
Bro, this guy looks like the shittier version of the general that they have all the time. What was it, McMaster or whatever? You guys can't find another type of guy? What's happening? He looks exactly like that fucking general dude. General Thumb Man.
Dismissing out of hand.
That's so irrelevant to the...
all conduct whatsoever. The president has no immunity for all criminal conduct, for any criminal conduct. They've gone back and said, no, you need to go look at this and then come back to us based upon what we've said in this opinion.
And the other thing is, well, it's the right and rules governing when and how to appeal aren't set in stone or aren't entirely clear. And I think they felt some need to delineate that this is an appealable order. They aren't always, and sometimes some things you have to wait to appeal until the end of a trial. They're giving whoever it is, and probably Trump, the opportunity to appeal during trial.
Well, let me ask you, do you think that if Judge Chutkan had ruled differently initially and said, basically closer to this, the conversations with the Justice Department are clearly official acts, I'm not going to count them, but the other ones, like if there had been a less of a...
Bro, like the conversation with the Justice Department or official acts is so crazy. Like that, even that in and of itself literally means that you can legally do a coup or illegally do a coup. And if it works, then that's great. If it doesn't work, it's still not prosecutable because you did it as the president. Like that is what this, maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but like, remember the hypothetical that I brought forward to you guys, and then they literally used that shit early on against the Supreme Court, where like, I think it was Sotomayor who asked the question to Trump's prosecutors or Trump's lawyers and was like, so do you think the president can use SEAL Team 6 to assassinate someone? And they said, yes, under a hypothetical, that could be perfectly valid. That could be perfectly considered permissible. That is literally now, after the Supreme Court decision, like maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just going off of like what I read from what Sotomayor was saying, but that kind of feels like that's what's allowed now. That is like allowed. It's valid. So to them, to everyone listening, I say, Joe, send them in, baby. Put a bunch of fucking doorbusters up in this bitch, okay? Send them to Mar-a-Lago. Send them to Mar-a-Lago. Send the fucking door kickers in the Mar-a-Lago. Get it done. You feel me? Get it done. It's not illegal. The Supreme Court gave you the opportunity. Don't be a bitch. That's the only way you're going to win. Yeah, I mean, she literally brought this up, which was like a hypothetical, but now not so hypothetical. Sotomayor's dissent. The president of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses official powers in any way under the majority's reasoning, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power, immune. Take a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, 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 immune. Which, by the way, it's ironic because with the exception of like ordering SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, Trump basically did the other two things. That is the reason why they're having this fucking deliberation. That's the reason why the majority, supermajority Republican Supreme Court made this decision known. The entire reason why this happened was because Trump was doing that, okay? He tried to do the shittiest coup of all time, no military riz whatsoever, constantly kept calling the generals gay and fucking woke and losers, so they didn't do a coup with him, but he still tried nonetheless, turned into an insurrection, yada, yada, yada. That's one thing. The other thing is he also did quid pro quo with other foreign leaders. Like he straight up did that. He also, and this is, I can't say this with 100% certainty, but I'm pretty sure there was a lot of fuckery going on with the presidential pardons as well. This motherfucker pardoned Paul Manafort, Steve Bannon, and every other person that was in his like orbit on his like up until the last day of office. So it's pretty wild. And none of that shit's prosecutable because that's like within the purview of the president. Whew, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty wild shit, dude. This is like, I feel like this is a constitutional crisis, but I guess at this point, we're so used to it, we just don't even think about it. We're just like, whatever, you know? Whatever. Is that why you're streaming from abroad as an insurance policy so Trump can't go after you win? First of all, the entire world is America's playground. If an American president wanted me assassinated, they could do so. And they basically could do so before. But now they definitely can do so. Okay? This is, Nixon vindicated, baby. That's right. My Maoist king, Richard Jebediah Nixon, vindicated. Total and utter cultural victory, total and utter legal victory. Why are we even chirping about this guy? He was good. He was not bad. Watergate was awesome. We should do more Watergates, actually. Anyway, we'll get through the Sotomayor dissent in a second. Let's continue.
The sweeping, of course he can be indicted on any of this stuff, ruling by Judge Chutkan. Would this not have been ended up where it was today? Did she open?
I like that they also were like, hey, by the way, if you do try to continue prosecuting him, you got to bring it back up to us again. And who knows what we'll say next time. You know what I mean?
The door for a decision like this.
She did. I think Judge Chutkan's going to have a lot of regret. When she issued her opinion, it just said there's no such thing as automatic immunity for everything a president does his whole 4 years. When I was reading that, I said, okay.
And the Supreme Court said, hold up, that's not true, actually. We've decided that you're wrong. That's crazy, man. That's a... Like, what are we doing? What the fuck are we doing here? It's a clown show. Total fucking clown show.
Where's Part B? I expected Part B to be, and I find, having reviewed the record and reviewed the documents, and I find that even if there is such thing as immunity, he was outside the scope. And by the way, that's what the Court of Appeals did on their ruling. The problem is, as Jim was saying, the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, they're not fact finders. This can only be done at the district court level. And so I suspect Judge Chutkan is feeling some regret. It wasn't like it was some leap of logic that she should do that. This happens. There are hearings. For example, in the Georgia case, Mark Meadows is trying to get his case.
Yeah, actually, it's the district court judge's fault. Yeah, totally. Bro, that's crazy. Okay. Like, I'm sure if she crossed her T's and dotted her I's, the SCOTUS would have fucking reacted in the same way that they're going to react to this, because they are not a serious legal body. They are not actually applying some kind of interpretation that is differing from one another. Okay. They're just literally managing the influence that they have alongside the interest that they have. Okay. That's why when you're a Republican, you fucking react like a Republican would. If you're a Democrat, you react like a Democrat would. Like there's some differences. You know, you have like a little bit of a centrism, at least for those institution lovers in the Supreme Court, you know, John Roberts being one of them now. But ultimately, yeah, this was the expected. This was the, well, not to this degree, but like some kind of mechanism to defend Donald Trump, to ensure that Donald Trump's court case is not held before he officially becomes president, was the ultimate goal here.
Over to federal court. The question there is almost the same thing. Was Mark Meadows in or out of the scope? You know what the federal judge did there in Georgia? He held a hearing. Mark Meadows testified. He said, I find based on this hearing, you're outside the scope. If Judge Chutkan had done that, we'd be in a very different position.
Where I don't agree with that, though, is that either of the parties would have had an opportunity to appeal the portion of that opinion that they did not agree with, because it would have been somewhat of a split the baby gobbledygook that they would have had a right to appeal. You can't tell me that either Jack Smith or Trump's team would not have attempted to take it up, and the Supreme Court would have created similar gobbledygook.
But we would have had an answer
today.
right now.
Well,
if she'd already done the hearing, we'd know right now.
They would have gone up to the Supreme Court, though, and I think
we'll never know. This is on Earth. This is on Earth too. All I can tell you is, having been covering the U.S. Supreme Court and you know, and they're just to go back to Bush v. Gore.
Yeah.
The reason that the conservative court in Bush v. Gore was able to do what they did is because the Florida Supreme Court let them.
Yeah.
The Florida Supreme Court made so many bad decisions and bad rulings, it was easy for the U.S. Supreme Court to come in and say, no, stop the count.
Yeah, what's interesting here, and there's a great line, I'm skimming it very quickly, in Justice Sotomayor's dissent, where she says, you know, the majority pays lip service to this idea that the president is not above the law, and then in effect says that for certain official acts, the president is in fact above the law. It's how do you sort out what this actually means?
Let's do that right now, because in the oral arguments, there were certain examples that were given. Let's explore a couple of those and what today's decision means. First one was raised by Justice Sonia Sotomayor back in, was this April? What about getting SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Let's roll that tape.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
That was a stunning moment in April. Did the court just say, yeah, you can assassinate a political rival?
No, I don't think they did. That's a ridiculous answer by Donald Trump's team, a dangerous and reckless answer. One really important thing.
Why? Like, no, that is what the Supreme Court said, though. What do you mean? Oh, that's a ridiculous and dangerous answer? No, that is literally what the Supreme Court decided. Like, that is what it is. You can consider that to be fucking reckless or dangerous, but that is ultimately the case. I feel like, you know how I've talked a lot about Americans in the Western world coping with, like, how much better they are than, like, Eastern traditions and stuff. Like, we orientalize bribery. We're like, oh, Pakistan, India, there's so much bribery there. And then we codify it, right? We codify bribery. We make it legal within the boundaries of federal regulation, you know, federal regulation, right? What do? We call it lobbying. Corporate lobbying is legal. It's somehow different than bribery. And I feel like this is a very Russia moment. You know, we talk about like, oh, Vladimir Putin assassinates his political rivals. Like, it's really fucked up. And it's like, here we have the American Supreme Court literally saying like, no, it's fine. Like, it's illegal, but it's within, it's an official, as long as it's an official act, it's not prosecutable. So how is that any different then? Like, how is that any different? How is that any fucking different? Like, we're over here chirping about Russia all day, every day, but we're like, yeah, no, it's actually illegal now, so it's different. We're doing it through legal channels.
The basis for Donald Trump's legal argument that maybe he can order an assassination and still be okay is this preposterous argument that they offered below that, well, a president can only be indicted if he's first impeached by the House and convicted by the Senate. The Supreme Court explicitly rejected that argument. They said impeachment has nothing to do with this. That's not the test.
To your question, Jake, someone's got to decide what's the official act, right? And that, the challenge here, and this was what Sotomayor was getting at in her point, somebody has to make the call as to whether even the preposterous...
Like, it's just so stupid. You just added another hurdle to clear. Oh, is this an official act actually, or is this not an official act actually? Who gives a fuck? What do you mean? Like, that's insane. It's just illegal. What you are adding an unnecessary hurdle, an additional bar to clear in order to prosecute a former president. Okay, that's ridiculous. And they did this with fucking Chevron deference too. They did this with the other decision. Now you can't have a regulatory agency act under the boundaries of like any of the former acts that gave the EPA and all these other federal regulatory agencies the power to fucking react, which they rarely ever do so anyway. But when they did, now they can't do that. Now they're open to litigation. Like, now a court has to fucking come in and decide whether or not they're allowed to do certain things. And that in and of itself is also adding another additional layer to the regulatory body's mechanisms. It's just completely, utterly unnecessary. And the ultimate goal is to basically allow presidents to do whatever the fuck they want without any sort of legal scrutiny. That's number one. And allow corporations to do whatever the fuck they want without any sort of regulatory scrutiny. It's great. And this happened in the same fucking week, by the way. The Supreme Court is nutty, dude. They're so insane.
This SEAL Team 6 example falls under the ambit of official acts, and that's litigation in months in court.
No, agreed. I think that's something that will have to be decided by the trial court if we were faced with that preposterous type of scenario. No doubt about it.
Jamie.
I just have a quick question for the lawyer. So one of the big concerns is getting evidence out in front of voters before November. We now don't think a trial
We're not gonna get it.
is possible.
No.
Is it possible, one lawyer just texted, would an evidentiary hearing be a way for Jack Smith to get some of that evidence out there in the public record.
Sure. So the district judge now has to have an evidentiary hearing. She can absolutely do that before the election. She can hear from witnesses. We're not going to get a verdict. I guess the judge will say some things were official or unofficial, but there's not going to be a convicted felon tag hung on Donald Trump for this case. I also should add, this is a major problem for the Georgia case because the factual allegations are very similar for Fani Willis's case. Now, that case is beset by its own series of problems, but now they're going to have to contend with this immunity problem as well.
Oh boy, big news. The only thing literally stopping us from having lead in our food is state level regulatory agencies that are underfunded. Yeah, well, good luck. Dude, everyone's talking about like fucking microplastics making everybody gay. Guess what, dude? You're going to get a lot of those. You're going to get a lot more microplastics, baby. What are you going to do? We have no fucking regulation. Anyway, yeah, Sotomayor's dissent is pretty powerful. It's good to go through it a little bit. The Supreme Court rules. Here's the senior writer of Slate doing that for us, the summarization. The Supreme Court rules that President Trump has absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for all official acts, in air quotes, he took while in office. The vote is 6-3 with all the liberals dissenting. Sotomayor dissenting says, today's decision shields presidents from prosecution for criminal and treasonous acts and makes a mockery of the principle foundational to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law. That's like inherently the most un-American decision that the Supreme Court could have taken, by the way. The founding fathers, they didn't agree on whether or not you should be able to have slaves or not, right? Pretty fucked up if you ask me. But there was two things that they were united on, okay? Well, with some exceptions, but for the most part, the spirit of like the American nation's development, the fundamentals, the one good thing that they maintained for the most part was no man is above the law and presidents are not God kings. Okay, no emperors, no monarchs, none of that shit. And also secularism too, but that's like, even that's being called the question right now. You got the Louisiana Supreme Court. You got Oklahoma with the Bible reading and whatever in public school. So like even they're fucking ripping that shit apart too. They're just flexing at this point. I feel like the American Christian nationalist right is basically just, in flex mode. They're like, what are you going to do about it, bitch? We'll do whatever the fuck we want. But ultimately, like the entire spirit of this nation was built on the idea that presidents can't be fucking emperors and that no man is above the law, right? Why is there even a system of checks and balances if that's not the case? Anyway, but yeah, now they have very openly declared, no, some men are above the law, actually, presidents, who are kind of like God kings in that sense. You were in a TikTok slide with 2 million likes. Created didn't like your tweet though. Yeah, I saw that. Anyway, we watched it earlier. I don't know why the creator didn't like my tweet. It's fucked up. Project 2025 incoming, they told you. Guys, you need to understand something. Biden is currently president. This is why I keep telling you motherfuckers, like, Project 2025 is nothing because it's everything. Okay? It's not like this is a new thing. This is like what I've been warning everyone about for years and years and years. Republicans, like, very early on realized, oh, if we do court packing, if we just put ideological judges and justices and we slam them into the fucking court structure, we can just completely capture the judiciary. And then we can just no longer have to utilize the legislative body. There's too much discourse. There's too much back and forth in the legislative body. We can always say states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, and move our initiatives through state legislatures that, you can absolutely cook the books on through districting. And basically pass like insane legislation at the state level and then have that be tested in the courts and go all the way up to the Supreme Court so that it's like actually considered valid and permissible. And that's precisely what has been happening. It's not like this is a new phenomena, right? This is not Project 2025. This was Project 2005, okay? This was Project 2000. You told me to break up with my girlfriend because she didn't watch the debate. She actually broke up with me yesterday, so I'm all set for the next debate at least. Hell yeah, brother. That's right. You did the right thing. or she did. This isn't even touching on the other case released today. If you remember, the Chevron decision lets anyone sue and judges can randomly overturn any new regulation. The one today makes the Chevron retroactive, and now you can sue over decades-old regulations, incoming 10,000 lawsuits to shut down all the agencies. Yeah, that way, by the way, you don't even need the fucking president. You don't even need the president to be a Republican so he can like cripple the institutions by refusing to fucking appoint people into the positions that you normally would appoint people to, or appoint like Scott Pruitt or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you could just straight up leave out the regulatory agencies to fucking die in the hands of like an endless amount of litigation from corporations. It's great. It's wonderful. It's awesome. Thank you so much to the Supreme Court. I mean, this is the most fucked up Supreme Court. Holy shit. I mean, obviously, you know, we had some Supreme Courts in the past with the whole slavery stuff, but like this is pretty bad, man. This is pretty fucking far reaching. It's pretty bad overall. You know, it's up there. One of the worst Supreme Courts. Shout out to RBG. Oh yeah, shouts out to RBG. My goat, my queen. Thank God. Thank God she didn't retire. Anyway, she hashtag resisted. Yeah, except she couldn't resist cancer for the 12th fucking time. Incoming poison baby formula. Wait, isn't there literally a Johnson court case right now specifically about the poison baby formula? Am I crazy? Did I imagine that? I mean, I know Johnson & Johnson literally did sell poison baby formula. That's like not a joke. Justice Sotomayor, with whom Justice Kagan and Justice Jackson joined dissenting. Today's decision grants the former president criminal immunity, reshapes the institution of the presidency. It makes a mockery of the principle foundational to our Constitution and system of government, that no man is above the law. Relying on little more than its own misguided wisdom about the need for bold and unhesitating action by the president, Annie 3 at 3:13, the court gives former President Trump all the immunity he asked for and more, because our Constitution does not shield a former president from answering for criminal and treasonous acts. I dissent. Never in the history of our republic has a president had reason to believe that he would be immune from criminal prosecution if he used the trappings of his office to violate the criminal law. Moving forward, however, all former presidents will be cloaked in such immunity. If the occupant of that office misuses official power for personal gain, the criminal law that the rest of us must abide will not provide a backstop. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. Today's decision, Mark Joseph Stern follows, says, is about as big a win for Trump as he could have possibly wanted or expected. The conservative supermajority creates a sweeping new kind of presidential immunity that will insulate many of his alleged criminal acts from indictment and prosecution. Just huge. Justice Sotomayor's dissent is one of the most terrified and terrifying pieces of judicial writing I've ever encountered. She lists the criminal acts that the presidents can now take with the Immunity Act and says the president is now a king above the law. Yeah, we talked about this already. I covered this part already. You can order the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival. You can organize a military coup to hold on to power. That's now legal. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon. Legal. Immune. Not even legal. It's still illegal. It's just that he's immune. So like it might as well be considered legal, I guess. If you want to be a semantics pervert about it, I know many lawyers are going to correct me on this and say, actually it's not legal. It's still illegal. It's just that the president has immunity, which is true. You're right about that. This is such a good take. Where is it? Hold on. Yeah, this is such a good take because this is exactly how Republicans operate. I think the ruling is fine. What if I become president one day? I want that sweet, sweet immunity. Yeah, that energy is the exact same type of energy that dumbass fucking Americans have with respect to tax cuts and deregulation. It's like, bro, you work at a gas station, okay? You make $22,000 a year. These tax cuts are not for you. This deregulation is not for you. It actually harms you, but you don't even understand it. But it's like, well, what if one day I'm rich and a business owner, and then all those fucking poors just like me right now, they better watch out. Even if these nightmare scenarios never play out, and I pray they never do, the damage has been done. The relationship between the president and the people he serves has shifted irrevocably. Am I saying that right? I don't know. Irrevocably. In every use of the official power, the president is now a king above the law. Both Sotomayor and Jackson below are extremely skeptical of the majority's arbitrary and irrational distinction between the official and unofficial acts will allow accountability for Trump or any other future president. Yeah, as long as it's official, okay, you're fucking clear, baby. Brandon should do an official act, is what I mean, okay? Brandon, I know your brain is not too good, okay? I know I've asked you to retire, but let me tell you, okay, I take everything back. Brandon, it's just you and me right now. I'm in this room. It's just you and me. Listen to my words, okay, Brandon? Joseph Robinette Biden, you are the president. Do some official acts, perhaps against the Supreme Court, perhaps against your other political rivals. Perhaps you should do an official act like abolish student loan debt. You can do that. It is an official act. Do it illegally. You can do it illegally now. You have immunity. Brandon, make sure your legacy sticks. You want to be the new FDR, dude? Make it fucking stick. Use the army. Use the CIA. Take out the fucking stroke gun that you used on Bernie Sanders and start using it on everybody else. I don't know. Okay? Take out the car crash gun that you used on John Fetterman. Bust it out. Whip it out. Give him Havana syndrome. You can do it. Fuck it. YOLO mode. You can do whatever the fuck you want. No, not even in a video game, brother. Not even in a video game. In real life, I mean. Okay? Why am I meaning that? Because the Supreme Court told you can do it. The Supreme Court told you can do it. You're the president right now, Brandon. You are not the vice president. I know your brain's no good, and you probably forgot that you're president, but let me tell you, okay? You currently are the president. I just hate this fucking dog and pony show where Republicans get to do whatever the fuck they want to do, always and forever. And when we ask a Democrat to have like that same energy, it's like, God forbid. Oh my God. Like, I've literally never heard an honest Republican voter turn around and be like, what do you mean? This seems like a really fucked up thing to just like ship undocumented migrants to New York and Chicago without giving them proper go ahead. That seems like human trafficking. I've never heard a Republican voter turn around and be like, yeah, think of the institutions or think of the law. Like, they don't give a shit. They're like, oh, fuck yeah, it's awesome. Violate the law. They did January 6th. They don't give a fuck. No Republican cares. But God forbid a Democrat is like even a little bit outside of the fucking ball game. You know, just like plays it a little serious. Maybe 10% like a Republican does. You're like, whoa, law and order. These institutions are solid. These are golden institutions. We got to fucking defend them. We got to defend them tooth and nail. It's like, what good does that do to you? Institutionalists, and this is another fucking classic Hasanabi take, institutionalists end up destroying institutions because they concede to the Republicans who always and forever are working against the institutions. Okay, so if you're an institutionalist, honest to God, and you're like, well, what about all these rules that we have? And if you want to preserve those rules, if you want to preserve the sanctity of said institutions, you have to fucking play you have to play ball. Sometimes you have to do shit that in the short term look a little crazy. With today's paradigm shift, the majority leaves in place only the chance that this court might someday determine that the criminal conduct in question was an unofficial act, or that the government will somehow rebut the presumption of immunity that applies to president's official acts, such that criminal consequences might attach. But with the parameters of official and unofficial conduct unknown, I think it highly unlikely that a sitting president would feel constrained by these remote possibilities. For kicks, the Supreme Court could retroactively make Watergate legal. I mean, yeah. Seth Mandel. Sounds like the Supreme Court did exactly what Andrew McCarthy predicted, which was to leave the 2 of the 4 charges not only still standing, but arguably maybe even stronger by virtue of Trump's camp's admission that these were indeed private acts. I don't think these guys understand. This is copium. The oral argument for the immunity case, Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrung from Trump's counsel, John Sawyer, a concession that the fake elector scheme, as charged, involved private behavior by Trump and his campaign, i.e., it was a political action of an office seeker, not the official action of a president. Even then, you could literally make the argument. You could make the argument that you can grant presidential pardons for money. Okay? You can do that. That is an official act of the presidency. You can do quid pro quo schemes with foreign officials, like Trump tried to do with Ukraine at the time. Yet another official act of the president. That's not like, it's all up to interpretation. And it creates, in my opinion, an entirely unnecessary separate distinction that doesn't need to be there. Okay? Couldn't Trump pardon his recent conviction? That's another constitutional crisis. We don't know. Technically, yes. The federal one, he probably could. I don't think it's ever been done before. It's only been done with like a new president pardoning former presidents. That's been done before. Or other like people acting alongside the president. Iran-Contra comes to mind. But ultimately, even then, it's just the way that the Supreme Court is operating. Do you really think if Trump becomes president and then this fucking case goes through, first of all, he can drop it at the DOJ before, if the case is happening, Trump can shut it down as the president. That's number one. And if he doesn't do that, let's say it happens in like a weird time frame where a decision comes down and basically Trump is found guilty, okay, of criminal conspiracy to like overturn the election results or anything like that, right? Let's say that happens. He could technically pardon himself because it's a federal case. He wouldn't be able to pardon himself in the Georgia one because Georgia is a state prosecution. So for that, he'd have to go to the Georgia governor, which is really funny, but who he hates personally for the entire Georgia RICO and the federal case happening is partially due to the Georgia governor. But ultimately, he could pardon himself. And do I think that this Supreme Court would find that unconstitutional? Abso-fucking-lutely not. Look what they did today. Look what they fucking did today. I don't know. Anyway. Hence, even if the Supreme Court recognizes presidential immunity from prosecution for official acts, Trump's campaign has acknowledged that the fake elector scheme would not be immunized. Moreover, the scheme involves the manufacture of false documents intended to influence the outcome of the congressional proceeding rather than forcible intimidation that prevented the proceeding from happening. Ergo, even after Fisher, it remains chargeable as obstruction under 1512C2. Also, according to this analysis by McCarthy, the court made it possible where before it wasn't to get a trial before the election, possible, not automatic. If this is true, the complaining about it will come from people who don't realize the above. That part, when the trial comes, is up to a lot of factors. Yeah, no, the Supreme Court did this and it was actually good is such a wild fucking take. Except they didn't have to do this. They could have immediately fucking followed through and been like, yeah, the president is of course not immune from the law. What the fuck are we talking about? And then, move on with it. And actually, because like when Jack Smith brought this up to the Supreme Court, the expectation was either they're going to sit on this or they're going to immediately rule that the president is not immune. And if they immediately rule that the president is not immune, then boom, it's happening. It's like the court process can start. Except the Supreme Court was like, hold on, we need to deliberate on this a little bit. We need to let this fucking sit. And then everybody understood, oh, they're waiting for, they're literally doing a layup. They're helping push this back so that this court proceeding doesn't happen before the election. So this person is fucking delusional for stating that like, oh no, actually the Supreme Court made it easier to fucking prosecute Donald Trump by adding an unnecessary additional fucking hurdle to clear. Which is like, is this an official act or is this an unofficial act? And then that is going to go up to the Supreme Court, potentially. The one dose of cold water McCarthy seemed to pour on the case pre-SCOTUS rules was that the fake electors case may not be as strong as they think it is. But that's another issue. The case seems to survive the court's ruling this morning, so they'll eventually get to test it. Oh, yeah, it's just... Yeah, he's just gonna say it's an official act. Like this guy is so stupid. Hypocrisy and testimony seem two different things, but that is above my pay grade. Shut the fuck up, dude. Ay. The actually Andes. Anyway, let's see what the Fox News guys are saying about this.
President Trump has given a statement to Fox News Digital in the wake of this decision. I'll read it for you here, and Jonathan Turley, get your take on the other side. Former President Trump said, "I have been harassed by the Democrat Party, Joe Biden, Obama, and their thugs, fascists, and communists for years. And now the courts have spoken. This is a big win for our Constitution and for democracy. Now I am free to campaign like anyone else. We are leading in every poll by a lot, and we will make America great again." So that's his take, although I mentioned earlier, there's another date on the calendar. This is his July 11th sentencing in New York. And I agree, Jonathan, with him when he says, "I'm free to campaign like anyone else." Will that be true at the end of?
Put him in jail, bro. That'd be so sick. Fuck it. Democrats, put his ass in jail for like literally improperly filing shit. Okay? That's it. That's the meta. That's the way. That's the way this is going to go. Put his ass in Gitmo for mismanaging, for improperly filing, for false records, false business records. Put him in Gitmo. Fuck it, dude. Put him in that Colorado prison on the mountain where all the terrorists and like the fucking worst guys are. What is it called? I forget. ADX. Yeah, put him in ADX Florence, dude. Fuck his ass up. Yeah. Motherfucker's going to ADX Florence for hush money payments made to a porn star. First ever. They're sending his ass to Gitmo. Yeah, put him next to El Chapo Guzman, dude. Fuck it.
Day on July 11th as well?
Well, I would hope that the judge in New York would not impose a jail sentence because I don't think it's warranted under New York law. Oh
my God, my goat, Jonathan Turley, Donald Trump's favorite esteemed legal scholar.
This case is not over. Jack Smith is not going to go quietly into that night. I want to note two other aspects of this opinion to complete this circle. The court deals with the so-called fake electors issue. And it says, look, that question in dealing with state officials is not something that we see as falling within these core areas. And so the district court's going to have to look at those communications to determine to what extent there is this immunity, presumptive or not, that might apply. But then it also talks about President Trump's January 6th speech and all of his tweets. And the language there seems quite favorable towards President Trump and says that presidents are expected to speak forcibly on issues, forcefully on issues that are important to citizens. And it really puts a emphasis on the fact that this is something that presidents do. Many of us believe, certainly I do, that President Trump's speech was entirely protected under the First Amendment. But the court is also saying this is a function of what presidents do on matters that divide the public. So on that, you have another section that's going to help out the Trump team dramatically in front of the district court. The one area that might be a sticky point is going to be the electors issue. And even Trump's counsel in front of the court acknowledged that that was going to be a tougher one. But otherwise, this is a very good day for the former president. This opinion is quite favorable on most points.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earl.
That's it.
I want to turn to...
Bro, they're not even fucking flexing that hard. That's crazy.
Carrie. And there was... The dissent was written by Justice Sotomayor. We also had from Elena Kagan, from Ketanji Brown Jackson. But I want to start with Justice Sotomayor. And I believe I'm going to pull up, just for the control room, the first Justice Sotomayor. Never in the history, so this is what she said, never in the history of our republic has a president had reason to believe that he would be immune from criminal prosecution if he used the trappings of his office to violate the criminal law. Moving forward, however, all former presidents will be cloaked in such immunity. If the occupant of that office misuses official power for personal gain, the criminal law that the rest of us must abide will not provide a backstop. With fear for our democracy, I dissent.
It's a very strong statement by Justice Sotomayor, and it's understandable from the context of how broad the majority seems to interpret immunity in this case. The majority doesn't just say that the former president is immune for official acts, which it makes very clear. It also really broadens it out. And there's a part that I want to point to in the opinion where it says the immunity we've recognized extends to the outer perimeter of the president's official responsibilities, covering actions so long as they are not manifestly or palpably beyond his authority. And so I think although the court in this case really hands it back down to the lower court in this specific case involving former President Trump, it is tipping the scale for the lower court to really take a very expansive view of what official acts are. So this is a court of confusion in some ways. It tosses so many things back to the lower courts.
And let me just give one specific example that she was talking about, Sotomayor. She talks about what if the president orders the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune, organizes a military coup to hold on to power, immune, takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, 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 immune.
I'm not sure that's accurate. I mean, it's a bit hyperbolic, but I think what that does is nicely underscore that we're going to have some really difficult decisions to make. It's not clear whether there would be immunity. I mean, a district court judge could easily look at that scenario and say, no way. I find that ordering an assassination of a rival through SEAL Team 6, that's out of the scope. So I don't necessarily agree with.
He keeps saying this, but it's like, on principle, yes, it is accurate. Okay? Because a district judge says that, and then it goes back up to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court says no, then what do you do?
To that extent, but she's right. We now have some very difficult problems to wrestle with.
I think she's a lot closer to right than wrong.
Yes.
I think that when you combine her concerns with the way they articulated this position again and again and again, they come back to this idea that, oh, this immunity is absolutely necessary. Not only is it constitutionally required by separation of powers, but if without it, a president would be chilled from taking bold and decisive action. They repeat that again and again and again. So basically what you have here is the Supreme Court imposing its judgment that that principle, that we must have bold and decisive presidents, is more important than the principle that Justice Sotomayor is advancing, which is we should have presidents who obey the law.
Back with the team here in New York. Tim Naftali, you're a presidential historian. You focused a lot on Nixon. What do you make of this?
This decision was written as if America has never had a corrupt president. This decision is blind to the ways in which presidents have used their core constitutional authorities to hurt the American people. In the 1970s, the Congress of the United States, the courts, and the American people pushed back against something that was called the imperial presidency. The imperial presidency was one that used the color of national security, one of the core presidential authorities, to wiretap people, to break into their homes, to break into their psychiatrist's office, Daniel Ellsberg, to audit their IRS files, all under the color of what the Supreme Court would describe today as a core constitutional authority. Now, those were official acts according to this court, because according to this court, your motive as president doesn't matter. If you do this in order to hurt an American citizen you don't like, to hurt a political opponent, according to this court, it doesn't matter. You have just talked to the CIA, you have just talked to your Attorney General, you have talked to the Secretary of Treasury. By doing so, you are engaging in an official act. This opens the door to abuses of power, the kinds of abuses of power that we had in the Cold War at a time of the imperial presidency. It is beyond belief that a court of people who lived through the 1970s would have forgotten how it was that Richard Nixon abused power.
I mean, I don't think they forgot. I think they're just like, you know, Richard Nixon plus Riz equals Donald Trump. They're chill with it. They know who's buttering their bread, man. That's it. I don't know. That's it. I feel like a lot of people in positions of power recognize that the conditions are worsening and they see the writing on the wall. Like, we got to do a little bit of fascist law and order up in this bitch. You know? So they're just opening up the floodgates to a guy and giving legal, you know, like allowing that to happen legally.
That being generous. There are a lot of people, I think we underestimate this, a lot of people on the right who are conservatives, Republicans, whatever you want to call them, who believe that those Nixon decisions were wrongly decided, who believe that the president did and does have way more power than was applied in that Nixon example. So the fact that this is a sort of redo of the Nixon era is not surprising in the least to me, because that has been a project on the right for a long time. And one of the interesting things, I mean, I was reading pretty closely Amy Coney Barrett's dissent in part, because she addresses some of the key parts of this. One is that she says it's not right to say that there are not official things that can also be criminal, and that Congress has a say in that, that criminal law has a say in that, and that pushing this to the district court is a justice delayed, justice denied kind of scenario in which you could delay the adjudication of these issues so much so that justice is never seen. And then on top of that, the idea that you can't take evidence of official acts and use them in criminal prosecution, taken together, all of those things say that even in the areas where they say a president can be criminally prosecuted, the bar becomes so high that it creates huge roadblocks that this will happen in any particular case. And I think it's not something that is like completely out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, we are living through it right now.
Joey Jackson, just from a legal standpoint, this now moves to lower court.
So I'm concerned. I'd go pretty far in my view. I think it's a disgrace. Let me express why. We look to the Supreme Court for clarity. We look to the Supreme Court to be definitive and give definitive determinations. There's no definitive determination here. They gave uncertainty. They gave more litigation. They gave instances where you can go back to the district court just to be appealed again. And where does it come? To the Supreme Court. That's number one. Number two, when you look at a court.
The very same Supreme Court that created this additional carve out for no fucking reason, which like opens up presidents to be immune to prosecution if they are in clear-cut violation of the law, is also going to deliberate on whether or not the illegal violation of the law that the president is committing is considered an official presidential act or not. I'm not gonna fucking put my I'm not gonna fucking bet against the Supreme Court in that situation. I suspect that they will say, oh, yeah, no, this is actually a official presidential act. I'm just saying, can't put Biden in jail now, though. That's what you think. Brother, this kind of stuff only works in one direction, okay? That's why for years I've been saying Biden needs to fucking pack the goddamn court. Slam that shit, okay? Slam that shit.
Or look at courts to give that guidance, and they should be nonpartisan.
Especially because, like, sorry, the other point I was going to make is that Republicans don't give a shit. Republicans will always use anything and everything to their advantage. That's it.
Reasons you want to talk about 70s, founding fathers, and 200 years ago is because you give lifetime tenure so that you can make a decision. And that decision, you know what? You're here, doesn't matter. The reality is that
don't the current ones have to die? No, expanded, brother. What do you mean? The Supreme Court has been expanded in the past. No, stack that shit. You know, 15 Supreme Court 100 Supreme Court justices. Okay, fuck it, YOLO. Put every 35-year-old legal mind who's like ideologically committed to the Democratic Party. They don't even have to be fucking communists or whatever. I mean, I'm in it for like marginal civil liberty protection. Okay. He should have done that. But Brandon said that that would make the court too politicized. It's like, bro, what are you talking about? It is politicized.
We need to have.
Make every American a Supreme Court justice. Okay. Make every American in the United States of America a Supreme Court. 335 million Supreme Court justices. Fuck it. Make the undocumented migrant Supreme Court justices too. I don't give a shit.
Confidence in our institutions, for our institutions to be respected by people. And so you have 6 conservative justices protecting the president, and 3, okay, Amy Barrett listed in part, but 6 Supreme Court justices protecting the president, and the other 3 liberal justices saying, are you kidding me here? And then you have, to Tim's point, you cannot use the president's motivation as evidence. You can't use the president's discussion with Department of Justice officials or advisors as evidence. What is that? And so I just thought that when I'd see an opinion, it would provide some direction, it would provide some clarity. This seems to me to be protection and cover, and this is going to go on for years ad infinitum, and I'm concerned.